Okay, streaming.
So Sabrina, are you out there by chance, Sabrina? Or Richard? Richard, are you out there by chance? Richard. Richard or Sabrina, good morning.
Hey,
Okay.
Brad, good morning. Yep,
Oh, great. We'll start there, Richard. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, Brett. How's it going?
Awesome. I'm doing great. Now, just everybody real quickly, Richard has no idea what's coming. In fact, he actually wanted to go over this with me via email, but I would prefer to do it here. So I apologize to you, Richard, for having you be, quote unquote, like a guinea pig. You with me? But this is gonna be something that's not hard on you at all. You with me?
I'm with you.
Okay, so what Richard did was what a lot of people do when they get in this industry after a short period is they reach out and they want to know what they can do to become more successful than they are. Let's put it that way. To become more successful than they are. I mean, and what I see fundamentally with you, Richard, is that really there is no changes that need to be made. In fact, I could tell you that over the years, Richard, for me, I've started a tremendous number of companies, and I've started a tremendous number of projects. I consider a company like a project. And the interesting thing about it is, even as I get older, I don't put together a lot of blueprint for a project. I'm just not that type of guy. I think had I not had to go through, the county and the state ordinances and laws when I was a builder, I wouldn't have. I would have built my homes differently. But unfortunately, our company had to build a little over 900 homes by going through their laws and their expectations of us. And quite frankly, a lot of them just didn't make any sense. So everything I see with you, Richard, leads me to believe that you're going to be successful at this. But I will tell you this, that it's oftentimes, and we've all heard some, explanation of this or seen a quote similar, as I paraphrase here, that darkness oftentimes prevails before the light shows up. But what's interesting, Richard, is, and the rest of you, is that the only time I've ever found the light is not so much when I was seeking the light as it was when I was seeking it, but then I started to ask. You have to use every single aspect available to you fundamentally as a human being in order to be successful at something. And so we'll have a great off conversation from this group conversation today, Richard. I'll reach out and you and I will talk. But that being said, brother, I can't see you doing much more other than biding your time. Now, I will tell you, man, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I wish Sabrina was here, because I wanted to talk to Sabrina also. Because this is a woman, by the way, that's been with us for 3 years. She's been with us 3 years. And she funded a loan last week. Her second loan. And I can tell you all, you can't imagine, we have orphans out the yin-yang. Out the yin-yang. People that are not on teams. And you can't imagine how things can turn on a dime. I've seen it happen in this industry, and I've seen it happen in the mortgage industry, and the short period I was in the stock brokerage industry, where all of a sudden, one day, something happens. Now look, folks, it's not magic. It's you raising your hand. It's you using your voice. It's you asking questions via email. It's you asking questions to the universe. Hell, you may have to get down on your knees and pray. You may have to get down on your knees and beg if you're not a believer. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've been there myself where it's just like, it's not working out. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue, that piece of thread goes through that eyelet without any effort. Well, believe me, it goes through the eyelet without any effort because all the work you did prior. I mean, I've seen my own wife currently. My wife, I'm married to 17 and a half years, 18 years now, doing it. We're finally, what does she do? The same thing we all do. I sew. I've sewed for years. I'll take a needle and thread and I'll mend my own stuff. I've done it for years. What happens to us is finally, we take the thread and we put it in our mouth, put a little spittle on it. We roll it on the end. We look at it. And then what happens? It goes right through. I mean, again and again and again, when I work with these flies that are number 24, if you look up a fly for fly fishing called a caddis or a mayfly, and you go down to a size 24, the larger the number, the smaller the fly, you can't hardly see the fly. And I'm at an age where I can't hardly see anything. That's why I'm wearing these reading glasses. And it's one of the most maddening things you've ever been through your entire life. And then it goes through, and there's this sense of relief. Now that relief, I can tell you, is what we would call the end. But understand, you had to go through the beginning and the middle stages before you ever got to the end. And Richard has experienced the same thing that we all experience. And I've been there many, many times in my life. And what I could tell you is that the middle of something, the middle of a project, the middle of your goal is never defined until after you've reached your goal. So if all of a sudden today, Richard, one of the files got handed in that you handed in on behalf of your team got funded today, you'd say to yourself, oh, wow, it's over. Relief. That feels great. It's like an orgasm. Holy cow, that was wonderful. But there could be angry orgasms. Think about it. There could be happy orgasms. There could be orgasms of relief. I mean, truly, when you look at the truest sense of the word of an orgasm, we're not talking about sex here. We're talking about a release. A release. You've been bound. You've been bound, and now you're released. I want out. I want out. The only way you're going to get out is you're going to have to work at it, whether it be handcuffs or chains. For myself, in the early 80s, again and again and again, I was reading these books, even a book titled Healing the Chains That Bind You. I was not chained down physically, but as a metaphor, I was chained down to the trauma and the drama that I was raised under. And I can tell you that this can hit home with that, being involved in this process of trying to get a damn loan, find a loan, find a business owner interested. I brought up this chronological order that I put together years ago, and it comes up with the word tolerate. Now, when you look at the word tolerate, everybody here can use tolerate in a sentence. But have you ever really taken a look at your life and said to yourself, I am not going to tolerate this anymore? What does it mean when you say, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore? It means you're not going to put up with or allow or accept something unpleasant or annoying or different from your own view, even if you don't like it. It also describes a body or a physical handling a substance, or a physical thing handling a substance or harsh conditions with bad harm. You're not going to tolerate it anymore. But here's what I see again and again and again and again and again, before one day I realized this is me. It wasn't until I said to myself, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. I don't want to walk around being the byproduct of drama and trauma with a T and a D. And when I started to build a pipeline in the stock brokerage industry, I felt these feelings. Again and again, I felt these feelings of, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And what happened to me was no different than what happened to anyone else, was I sloughed off. I sloughed off. I backed off. Well, then, those intentions that I had it for myself to be successful as a stockbroker, those plans, those goals, those purposes in mind, turned immediately to betrayal. Think about that for a moment. Other people betray you, but you can betray yourself. You can break your own trust. You can betray your own faith, betray your own loyalty to something. So now let's take a look at what comes after I betray myself. Not when I'm betrayed by others, but when I intend to do something and I don't do it. When I've betrayed myself. After you betray yourself, a heavy wave of reckoning follows. You usually feel a deep sense of emptiness or anger or quiet exhaustion. This happens because you went against your own truth. You ignored your gut, or you broke your own trust. Resentment, a quiet resentment that builds. And what happens? You start to feel angry at yourself. But what do we do with our anger? Watch this. Listen to this. Pay attention and invest your time in this. What do we do once we betrayed ourselves and we become angry? Understand that over 99% of us do not direct that anger at ourselves. We direct that anger at others. Evolutionary psychology shows that outward anger acts as a protective or defensive response to perceived threats, boundary violations, or goal blockages. There it is. Goal blockages caused by external forces. Directing anger inward as self-blame or guilt does not occur frequently at all. But outward projection remains the more common default reaction. Look around the country. Everywhere you look, you see people who are literally involved in an environment where for the first time in my life, I've heard the words, "This man lives rent-free" in their head. Have any of you ever even heard that before Trump became president? I'd never heard that before. That, Jeff, you live rent-free in my head because I'm so angry at you. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that, brother? I never heard that saying before. Had you ever heard it, Jeff?
I have, yeah. On the west, Midwest. Yeah.
Is that common?
If, it's not one of those common things, but it's definitely, yeah, it's been said.
I've never heard it before, but I can tell you can turn on the TV right now and go to CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, go on Instagram, go on Reddit, go on whatever, go on Facebook, and you'll see people who are actually so angry. But I got to tell you, folks, most of this anger, when you're pointing a finger at someone, look at that finger. It's like a gun, and I'm pointing it at you, Paul, or Jeff, or Richard, or Joe. Look at the three. I'm pointing back at myself, folded inside. And so often, that's the thing I can tell you that transpires is we feel like we're blocked. And we say to ourselves, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. And then we get on a platform like this, and someone like me is saying, this is easy. This is simple. You can do this. There's nothing to this. Thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 people across the country in Canada and northern Mexico are doing this in this industry right now. And they have the formula. What is the formula? People ask me all the time, what is the formula? Look, the formula is not something that is real palatable. You can't be a framer without a hammer or a nail gun. You can't be a framer of wood on a house without nails and wood. So you're going to have wood. You're going to have nails. You're going to have a hammer or a nail gun. If you have a nail gun, you're going to have a compressor and a hose, and you're going to have nails. So you have to have the tools that it takes. That's the beauty of this industry, is there's barely, the word barely any tools for this. That's why it's difficult for some of us. It was difficult for me. How am I going to make something out of nothing? When I was with Smith Barney, how am I going to make something out of nothing? How am I going to make something out of nothing? You know, I can tell you all that I remember literally being involved in an environment at Smith Barney where the light bulb went on. It was a light switch effect. And I started to realize I got to quit trying to get something for myself, and I got to go out and offer something to others. You know, I went back and forth yesterday with a guy who handed in a file. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's at least 4 or 5 exchanges. The client won't do the loan unless it's this. The client won't do the loan unless it's that. The client won't do the loan unless it's this and that and this and that and this and that. Listen to me. Stop what you're doing and just say to the client, it sounds like we can help. There are no guarantees. But the only possible way that you can start the process is you've got to get an application in, and you've got to get 6-month bank statements into me, and then I get it to our underwriting team, and our team gets you an answer. If you don't like what you're being offered, then you don't take it. And remember this concept being offered to me for 401ks and health insurance by a very famous man in Portland, Oregon named Bardell Bailey. You can look him up. He's a real Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a Mormon. And this guy took me under his wing in those early days, because I was only in the industry 3.5 years before they bought my book of business. So in those early days and months, and again and again and again, he explained to me that you can't guarantee them anything. You can't. You're going to try and get them what they want, but you can't guarantee you're going to get them what they want. We actually had forms that said we cannot get you what you want on a guaranteed basis. We can certainly try. You know, I can tell you right now, folks, the only way you're going to be successful in this industry is you have to say, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. And what does it mean by I'm not going to tolerate it anymore? Maybe you're sitting around looking at porn. Maybe you're gambling. Maybe you're just a procrastinator. You know, I can tell you all, that is the one thing that I fight, that I believe is every bit as demonic as multitasking. 2 of the most demonic things I think that you could be involved in your day. Multitasking, trying to do 2 things at once, or 3 things at once, or 4 things at once, or 5 things at once. Do not kid yourself. I can tell you right now, you go back to the 40s and 50s, the 30s and the 20s, and I can tell you what you would see is a group of people that didn't have TVs. They didn't have Instagram. They didn't have Reddit. They didn't have Twitter. They didn't have Facebook. They didn't have all these abnormalities that human beings face every single day. These are not normalities. These are abnormalities that you can become part of if you want. I mean, they've done studies on this, and they know Zuckerberg was actually in front of Congress admitting that they've built their system for you and I to become addicted to it. They understand now more than ever that psychologically children need to be banned from these platforms during the developmental years because of how addicted they are. We are a nation more than any other country in the world of addictions. And these addictions, whether it be masturbation, whether it be gambling, hell, I know people who are addicted to Jesus Christ. I can't be around them. Just like I can't be around a heroin addict. I can't be around somebody who can't shut their mouth about Jesus Christ. I can't be around them. And I'm a believer. But understand this. That's oftentimes the way it is when we find something initially. We're out telling everyone about it. We're out telling everyone about it. It will wear off. It will wear off. And now comes the work. And I can tell you all something. I remember this like it was yesterday. Landing my first deal was nothing once I did in the stock brokerage industry. Okay? But where I really stumbled was I didn't realize that I was going to be involved in a maintenance program. The act of keeping something in good working order, preserving its state. I know people who do this in the mortgage industry, who do this in the stock brokerage industry, who do this in this industry, the merchant cash advance industry, like someone who's manic. High highs, low lows. High highs, low lows. And I know people who do this in life. They live low lows, they live high highs. I've met so many people that think that now that they got a $19,000 commission, the whole world is going to change. You're damn right it's going to change. You're going to do more masturbation now that you got all that money. You're going to gamble more now that you got all that money. You're going to eat more now that you got all that money. Whatever you were doing before you had money, you're going to do more of. You don't have to look very far before you see, the likes of a retroactive when he was alive at Jeffrey Epstein. The only reason Jeffrey Epstein had a plane, the only reason Jeffrey Epstein had an island is because he became rich. He became rich. And what did he do with his money? He did more of what he was already doing. To the point where there are still people everywhere you look across the nation saying, come on, show us the Epstein files. Come on, show us the Epstein files. Trump, you're holding back the Epstein files. I remember when Biden was president, people were saying, Biden, you're holding back the Epstein files. I mean, my God, there should be shirts. Who gives a shit about the Epstein files? Well, a lot of people give a shit about the Epstein files. They do. But it's interesting to me. One of these guys I know that I grew up with, his name is Steve Dick, based out of Milwaukee, Oregon. His dad's name was Harry Dick. Harry Dick was my Boy Scout leader. Steve Dick was actually absconded in my office by the Gladstone police in Gladstone, Oregon, about 7 a.m. one morning after him and I got in a fight. And come to find out, he'd been taking these little boys in his church group and making them drunk and then having his way with them with the minister, with the pastor. This is a guy who's now out, and you should see his posts on Facebook. He's on Epstein's side. You understand? You can't stop these predators, just like you can't stop someone from gambling. You can't stop someone from being an addict at masturbation or shopping or eating until, hold on a minute, until they say, you know what? I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. You don't even have to say the words, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Who said that? Anyone remember? I'm mad as
It's
hell.
from a movie. It's from a movie, but I don't remember the movie.
Well, we could go right back to Nixon too. There's a variation of Nixon being involved in it. But you're absolutely right. It's a movie line. And it resonates with all of us. You know, look, folks, if you put your shoe on today, like I've told before from a metaphorical standpoint, and you've got a piece of gravel in it, how long are you going to walk around with that piece of gravel in your shoe? So if you're in a situation where you're saying to yourself, you know, I want to do this, I need to do this, I want to get on and do Craigslist, I want to go door to door, I want to go, you know, out and call on businesses, I want to go to Chamber of Commerce meeting, I need to go to Chamber of Commerce meeting, I want to go to Chamber of Commerce meeting, I want to go door to door, I need and want to go to banks. You know, I need and want to do an email campaign. I've got to do these leads. If you're saying to yourself again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and you're not doing it, you're going to feel a sense of betrayal. And let's look at betrayal again. You're going to break your own trust. What happens when you don't trust yourself anymore? Let's type that in. What happens when I don't trust myself anymore? What happens when I don't trust myself anymore? When you stop trusting yourself, your inner world becomes a place of constant doubt. You rely heavily on others for your own approval. You second guess every choice. And you feel exhausted from overthinking. Do you know how many people I know that I've met personally who don't trust themselves? I know that we're filled with those people on this phone. But hold on a minute and listen to me. You trust yourself in certain areas. And that's why we go back to those areas, is because it's easier for us to live in a world of things we know instead of things we don't know. That's why they say, you know, it's hard to teach an old person new tricks, an old dog new tricks. It's not true. But what happens to us collectively is eventually we start to say, you know, I don't want to go through the learning curve because the learning curve is a bitch. What is the learning curve? That's the rate in which you gain new experience or education. And the learning curve doesn't have to be a bitch. In fact, think about it. Every time you've ever said to yourself, I'm excited to do this, and then you get involved with it, it seems to go so much easier. There seems to be so much gratitude versus saying to yourself, you know, kicking and screaming going into it, I don't want to do this. Look, one of the things that I learned from an exercise standpoint when it came to tolerating things and betraying myself is this. If for some reason you intend to do something, and again you intend to do it and you don't do it, then what you should do is you should walk away. Because you've got two energy sources going on there. And believe me, folks, in a cosmic world, those two energy sources are at war with one another. And believe me, it's not going to work out for you. If you've got something that you've got internally that's holding you back, saying, no, don't do it, and then you've got something else saying, do it, you're being torn apart. Think of it like tug of war. Who's going to win today? Who's going to win in this decision? And again and again and again, I meet people who are exhausted because they've been involved in this self-inflicted tug of war, metaphorically speaking. Listen, what I can tell you about success is this. If you haven't been successful in a while, in your mind, if you don't think you're successful overall, fuck the merchant cash advance industry overall, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get out a piece of paper and you're going to have to write down some notes. And you're going to have to say, I got to start to notice my wins. W-I-N-S. I know so many people hate the word win anymore, whether it be because of Charlie Sheen or, you know, Donald Trump or whoever. I don't care. I can't believe how many people I've met in my life that hate the word win. Fuck. If you haven't won, you've lost. I don't know what to tell you. But you could take a cross. Just watch this for a second. You could take a cross. Just take this symbol. I beat the hell out of it. Okay, you just take a cross. And what we do is, on one side, we write the word pros, and on the other side, we write the word cons. Okay? And what if you're just sitting there all fucking day going con, 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 con. Listen to me for a moment. You can't live your life that way. You can't live your life that way. You will become exhausted. And we blame exhaustion on the, you know, I can remember my sister-in-law. This would have been 1988, 1989, 1990. Someone say it. Fibromyalgia. How do you say it? Say it again.
Fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia didn't even exist. It didn't even exist. It wasn't on the map. You couldn't find it in any medical book anywhere. I know. They were doing studies on her. And then they came out with this term right there. Say it again, John.
Fibromyalgia.
Her whole world was going to change. She had found it. It wasn't 2 or 3 weeks later that she was on to the next thing. It wasn't a month or 2 later after they gave her a pill for that she was on to the next thing. And I'd already been there. I was born in 61. And I would sit down with her at work. This is my sister-in-law. She had just graduated from high school. I'd sit down with her at work. I'm like, look, you went through a lot of drama. You went through a lot of trauma growing up. You're a hypochondriac because you're hypervigilant because of the drama and the trauma that's transpired in your life. You're a hypochondriac. I just saw her again at my father-in-law's. They didn't have a funeral. They just got together at the house with 6 family members. And they were dividing up his stuff. And I was listening to her. And she's actually now got another 40 years of being a hypochondriac behind her. And I can tell you, these are vitamins, but we'll just use them as props, okay? I can tell you that you just can't believe the pills she's taking. And I see this everywhere I look right now. People seem to think that if I just take another pill. Look, I could tell you, folks, I saw an old man about, I don't know, 6 months ago, and he said the greatest pill on the face of the earth is a goddamn shovel and some dirt. And a grandpa who stands over the top of you that says, dig a fucking hole. Now, somewhere about an hour or 2 in, you're going to be part of the project. See, that's the thing in a nutshell. I did it. I remember what it was like to bilocate. I remember being involved where my body was here, but I felt disassociated. And I could tell you, folks, it had nothing to do with the fact that I was not meeting my goals, but that my soul was saying, you know what, then fuck you. I'm going to travel without you. I'm going to travel without you, asshole. Fuck your human body. I've got things I got to do this time around down here. And by God, if you're not going to be part of it, then fuck off. And I can tell you right now, had it not been for my soul dragging my body around, I don't know what I would have done. Had it not been for my dreams, my goals dragging my body around, I don't know what I would have done. I can tell you all, I went into Halton, Hessel, Case, Coast Crane. I went in these massive companies along Columbia Boulevard. But before I went in, I would arrive in my Mazda 323 in those early years, and I would vomit. I'd have the shakes. And I would think of everything under the sun that was going to go wrong in the meeting. I mean, it's unimaginable how you could just take and toss this stuff in your head, these ideas, these negative connotations that are going to have negative effect on you. And by the time that I got over and over again, Teresa, you'd be at the front desk, you'd answer the phone. Hi, this is Teresa with, Halton Tractor. How can I help you today? Or Jeff Graw would answer the phone. Hi, this is Jeff Graw with Finati. How can I help you today? Hey, Jeff, Brett Martin here. Hey, Brett, how the hell are you? I knew everyone at the front desk. Why in the hell could I meet them, but I couldn't meet the people behind the front desk? It was like this magical wall existed where I could be part of this world, but not part of that world. But what was interesting about me, and I don't know what it is, and I can't say to you anything other than I believe that my soul actually said, I'm going to kick you in the ass today. We're going again. I'm going to pull you up today. We're going again. I don't know. Was it God? Was it my soul? I don't know. I do know this, that when the goal outweighs or ambitions outweigh your willingness or your unwillingness to move forward, if we would do a better job maybe sometimes of just taking a gun and sticking it in the back of our head and saying, you're doing this or else. You're doing this or else. What if those were the results? Boy, we'd sure make that phone call. We'd sure go out and meet business owners. I can tell you all something about this. The other thing I can tell you is just because you now have made the commitment doesn't mean for 1 second that things have to go your way. Now the work begins. Because I can tell you, it's a maintenance program. I meet so many people. I'm talking to a guy the other day. We're talking about personal development. He pays me $1 million a year. Started at the first of the year. A number of clients do. And I went back and I was just like, Jeff, just stop. Let's just go back for a moment. And let's go back to the beginning of today. Okay. He's like a steamship rolling like me, or a freight train rolling like me. Like, first and foremost, did you get up and brush your teeth? Or did you brush your teeth at all? We went through 10 things that he's made a commitment that he's going to do. We made this together in December in preparation for the beginning of January of 2026. He did not brush his teeth. He did not eat breakfast. He grabbed coffee on the run from his wife. He got in the same outfit that he wore the day before, because it doesn't matter. He's in construction. No one's judging his clothing. So we went over the word betrayal. And we went over the word anger. And we start to psychoanalyze. And he realized again, just like he had again and again and again throughout the year, that his anger has to do with himself. The reason he's going so fast is he doesn't want to answer to himself. I mean, I remember those days when I would go so fast because I didn't want to answer myself. I didn't want to answer to myself. But I remember the very first time I ever got involved in a meditative state. or a yoga-like state. I didn't like myself. I didn't trust myself. I betrayed myself too often. I didn't know myself. I didn't know how to properly have anger. I didn't know how to properly have sadness. I didn't know how to properly have disgust. I didn't know how to have those 6 primary emotions. There's only 6. But what do they say about men? They say that men don't know how to, experience their emotions. Fuck, let's start with this. John, you and I are going to go out to pizza with our parents, and we're 6 years old, and we get in the back of the SUV, and it's my folks. You with me, John?
I'm with you.
And we're just wilder than March hares, brother. We're having the time of our lives. We're going to Shakey's Pizza. They got games. They're going to let us play the games. And my mom and dad get in, and they've had one of those fucking days, right, brother?
Yeah,
It's been a fucking day. In fact, that day was like a fucking month or a fucking year. You with me?
I'm with you.
And so what's the first thing they do with you and I, John? They start with me because I'm their own. They're like, hey, keep it down, right? And now you're my friend. You're no fool. You're going to abide, like that old saying, the dude will abide, right?
Right.
And the next thing you and I know, we've taken that energy that is just naturally instilled in you and I, and now we've squelched our own energy. Now, understand, when you talk about Pavlov's dogs, Ivan Pavlov, classical conditioning, you understand, John, that they actually think that we only have to have this happen 5 total times. 5 total times. In a 1-year period in child development, and at that point, it's gone, brother. It's Gone, gone. That's why if you said to me right now, John, Brett, can you laugh? I can't laugh very well. I have to get inside an infectious environment where there's a group of people laughing, like a comedy show, before I let go, before that energy becomes this laughter. That level of happiness, I'm one of those people that's stoic with that emotion. And it has a lot to do with the developmental stages I went through as a child. I mean, you can go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and just take a look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and understand if you don't get those needs met in those initial stages, down at the bottom, like the food pyramid, at the bottom, you ain't getting to the top. You ain't getting to the top. And it wasn't until I became aware of those things. I thought, listen, folks, I thought I was scared. But I didn't know what fear was, Teresa, until I started to realize, holy shit, I'm the problem here. Fuck, that's fucking scary. That's scary. When you look at yourself and go, hey, I'm the one that's causing all these damn problems. I'm the one who's come up with the fact that I'm ill, that I'm having these physical issues, and that it's all mental. This is unbelievable. You could not have imagined what it was like for me, because what happened to me was I progressively got sicker and sicker and sicker because of chemo and radiation when I was going through my cancer treatments. And finally, a lot of my team already knew, but finally people like yourself started to realize, like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with him? Look at him. He's skeletal. He can hardly talk. There's no stamina. He's wheezing, and I had become the byproduct of the stuff that goes on with traditional, cancer treatments. And all of a sudden, what happened to me was I realized the same thing I've always realized since I've started to admit that I'm an ex-addict, I'm an ex-alcoholic. I'm an ex-hypochondriac, that I realized it's not until right now that I dig in. It's when I'm at my worst that I'm at my best. And I had to remember this, and I had to write it down. And I'd already written about it because I'd read books about it. Understand, we develop these issues so that we can go through them and feel victorious. But if we never get the victory, if we never get the finish line, then we're stuck. And I'd already evolved past that. But again, I found myself involved in an environment where it was like, by God, Brett, you're being tried. And you're going to have to bear down. You know, last night I came out of here with some weights I had over here. 85 pounders. And I went out in the front room with 170 pounds, two 85-pound dumbbells, and I put them down by the TV. And I hadn't had those dumbbells in my hand in probably 4.25 years. My wife made the comment, all the weights that I've been using are over to the side for bench press. And my wife made the comment, she goes, Brett, less than a year ago, you couldn't do my 5-pound weights for a set of 20. Look at what you drug out of the room. She noticed it and I noticed it. She's been on this journey because she sits and knits, crochets, and knits by hand while we watch TV. And there I was doing a set, 4 sets of 25 with 85 pounds. And I got done and I had this emotional moment where I wept. And I wept because I realized that my goals were being met again and again and again because I first set the goal out there for myself that someday I would be doing this again. And then I had followed through. And now my muscles, my neck, my chest, everything is now looking more like a normal person. Come on, I'm an old man. I'm 65 in December. I'm never going to be what I was in my 20s or 30s. Ever. I won't be when it comes to my physical body. But I can tell you right now, the brain, the mind, the heart, all this stuff seems to be firing on all 8 cylinders because I didn't betray myself. I didn't betray myself. I followed through. This is the thing I'm going over with my own son right now, therapeutically, when him and I talk. I have to stop and explain to him again, look at what you've accomplished. I know, Dad, I know. Stop. 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 Because if you don't take the time to use step number 7 in my 7 keys to success, where you say to yourself, hey, I'm proud of you in the mirror. Then what happens is we become these people that are just accomplishing things. And I can tell you, I met so many overachievers, it's fucking unbelievable. This industry, the mortgage industry and the stock market industry is plumb full of overachievers. But I can tell you, I've met so many overachievers, probably at least 10, at least 10. In fact, I openly talk to you about Dan Raffetto. Many of you have heard me talk about Dan Raffetto over and over and over again. And I bought my domain name, Willamette Mortgage Services. Someone had let it go that had purchased a company years ago. And I bought it, and I'm going to put together our alumni. And my very first employee is Dan Raffetto. And when I typed his name in today, he's dead. He died last year. He is dead. And his 19-year-old daughter was holding what do they call it? You know, kind of like a party of his life. What do they call that? A celebration of life. And again and again and again, since then, I've said to myself, I'm like, Danny's dead. Danny's dead. Danny's dead. Danny is dead. I want to tell you something about Dan Raffetto. He was by far the sharpest mind I've ever met in my entire life, hands down. I've never met anyone that was as sharp as this guy in an overall manner. But one of the things that Danny did was Danny fell in love with Danny, like the story of Narcissist. And Danny drank like a fish. Danny drank more than my dad, my God, and my dad died at 57. Danny made it to 65. I didn't have to call anybody. I didn't have to get a hold of anyone on my old team. any of my old employees and say, hey, how did Danny die? I know how he died. I'd seen him 3 years ago and he was ripping and running in the same manner then. And I'm sure he did right up to the end. You know, we kill ourselves. But at the same time, we actually keep ourselves alive. I mean, there's a guy on the phone named Darius. He introduced me to this. There's a guy on the phone named Darius. He introduced me to this. He introduced me to this. He introduced me to this. And the reason I chose to go with Darius' decision-making process is that it's sound. I've been with him long enough to say, this is somebody I'd be willing to follow. But I am simply amazed at how many of us will follow damn near anything. You know, I had a lady I was talking to who I'm working with, who's another person, by the way, that paid me $1 million midweek last week, who made a comment to me. She said, a fucker did it to me again. And I started laughing. I'm like, Rhonda, listen to me. You call these people into your life. This is where the lesson lies. We've talked about this for 2 years in a row. When are you going to get the lesson? Well, understand, all of you, you can't become an attorney without a certain amount of school. You can't become a doctor without a certain amount of school. You can't become a teacher without a certain amount of school. So what makes you think you can be, you know, all-inclusive and all that in a bag of chips in life without some school, without some life school, life experience? So you're going to have to get your nose bloody. Now, I can tell you, I see the difference between two people, my oldest son and my youngest son, Grant and Travis Martin. Grant is somebody that will read the situation for days, hours, weeks, months, years before he finally says, I'm going to throw down a 5-stair or a 6-stair on my skateboard. I can't tell you how many times, and some of you heard the story, and I'm boring the shit out of you, that we go down to Clackamas High School and Grant would be in the bleachers. He was going to go after a 5 or 6-stair on his skateboard. And we wouldn't do it again. 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 Grant has never broken one single bone in his body. My oldest son is like me. He's broke them all. And what does Travis do? Very first time, he just throws the skateboard down and off he goes and he breaks his wrist. Down the hill he goes, he breaks his collarbone. I mean, this has been the story of my two children. One that throws caution to the wind and the other that used caution to his advantage. Listen, the bottom line is you have to know who you are before you can know how to get there. Here's what I realized about myself. No matter what, at first, I'm going to say no. No. No, Darius, I'm not taking this. No, Darius, I'm not taking this. Then what I have to do is I have to go through and I've got to look at the logic behind it. So no wonder my youngest son is in the manner in which he is when it comes to taking on tasks and psychoanalyzing them. These poor kids, they were raised and they were part of the byproduct of Brett Martin. At a stage, by the way, when I was going through some unimaginable developmental stages in my mind and in my body. But I can tell you right now, I'm doing that at 60, closing in on 65 right now. So if you're here and you're saying to yourself, God damn it, this is the week I'm going to do it. Or damn it, this is the week I'm going to do it. Or darn it, this is the week I'm going to do it. Understand that if you let yourself down, there's going to be a sense of betrayal. And in the event that you've let yourself down and you feel this sense of betrayal, I can tell you right now that what's going to happen is you're going to be in a situation where you're going to feel fatigued. You're going to feel empty. You're going to feel angry. If you've let yourself down, if you betrayed yourself You're going to feel exhausted, angry, empty. And I can tell you right now, I don't care what you tell me. Carrots, broccoli, these pills here, these vitamins, they ain't going to help you with betrayal. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you realize there was a time when some of the most emaciated bodies on the face of the planet came out of Auschwitz, and they did just fine. They didn't have vitamins and minerals, for Christ's sake. So they were taking, vitamin B12 that morning. Let's be serious here, folks. They would have made a meal out of a can if they could have. But I can tell you, I've met more people in my lifetime that are wealthy, that are Jewish, that it is unimaginable. And they've got the number on their arm from having been in those camps. It's determination. It's willpower. It's goal setting. It's, I'm not going to do that. Listen, some of the kindest people I've ever met in my entire life are Jews or American Indians, indigenous people to this continent. And they've been betrayed at a level which is simply unimaginable. Black people. Think about this for a moment. You got to understand, it wasn't very long ago. I can go back and I could show you clips of Joe Biden talking about niggers in Congress in the 70s and 80s, and they accepted it as normal. You talk about betrayal. I mean, these people, a lot of them were brought into slavery. Just imagine what that must be like to have to come out of that world and look at what your dad and mom or their dad and mom or their dad and mom went through. And I hear people all the time like, well, they don't deserve anything. It's like, Jesus, how'd you like to start the human experience behind the 8-ball? I had to laugh the other day when some guy said to me, you realize that when you're born, you have better credit than most adults. And I've known that for years. I could have said that. Think of what you and I have for weight on our shoulder. Think of what we carry around. That's why I say all the time, get a wheelbarrow and put it on the other side of the bed. Quit pushing it down the same rut. And tell your old lady tonight or your old man tonight or your dog or cat tonight, by God, I'm sleeping on the other side. Don't you tell me this is my side. Don't let her or him or them tell you this is my side. Mix it. If they're going to fight you, go sleep on the couch so that tomorrow you can see life from a different angle. I was in a wheelchair in 1982 to early 1984. 19 compound fractures on the left, 5 on the right-hand side of my body. Tiger Woods had 1, and he's still limping. I spent thousands of hours in recovery trying to get myself back to that body I remembered. It didn't physically look this, it didn't look the same visually. But what was interesting is it performed better because there was this toughness around me that existed. What do they say? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, I got to tell you, I've realized now more than ever, I'm surrounded by people that what doesn't kill them actually is making them weaker. And what we do is we try to take the path of least resistance and we give in. We give in. And then what we do is we throw anger out there like there should be no millionaires. There should be no, billionaires. There should be no trillionaires. I watched a special over the weekend and I can tell you it's coming to a neighborhood near you. But you better watch yourself and you better mark my words. Sharia law is coming your way. It's coming my way. It's here. We're here. It's happening. And what are we going to do about it? We're not going to do anything about it because we aren't we the people anymore. We are not we the people anymore. That's a fucking lie. It's I. Me. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? You've got to get out of that frame of mind. I need money. I can't buy food. I'm not able to pay my rent. I can't get new clothes. You've got to understand that two of the most important words you'll ever say are I am. I am hungry. I am a failure. I am hurting. I am ugly. I've met some of the prettiest women on earth who thought they were ugly. Kristen Buse died right before her wedding, the day before. Bulimia and anorexia. One of the most beautiful beings you've ever seen in your life, tormented by this hell, this upbringing. So many of us, men and women. I've seen so many handsome men, it is unbelievable, that are so shallow, that think so little of themselves, that it absolutely breaks my heart. And then I've seen some of the ugliest men and women on the face of the planet physically, who are absolutely tearing life up and having a ball, and full of all sorts of gratitude. We are complex beings. If we're not taking a chance to learn about ourselves, the bottom line is we're going to end up repeating ourselves again and again and again. And so this week is just going to be a duplication of last week. But you came on this platform, most of you, if not all of you, to say to yourself in your actions more than your words, knowingly, that, you know what? I don't want to be part of this anymore over here. I want to be part of this. I don't want to be part of this anymore. That's why I'm here. I want to be part of this. And you think of that level of excitement that shows up in that first week or two or three or four. But where does that excitement go? Hell, where does it go in a marriage? I can't wait to get married. Why do we have such a high divorce rate? Because very few people really know themselves. I mean, you want to go into a jungle. You want to go into troubled waters without a damn life preserver. You get to know yourself. I mean, more people that don't know themselves, truly don't know what makes them tick. You got to be brave enough to look at yourself and ask yourself, are you who you want to be? And if you're not who you want to be, can I build that character? Can I become that character? Can I add some principles in my life that make me that person that I want to become? Sure you can. This goes on every day. You can read about it in books all over the place. But you first have to want to. You have to set up some goals. You have to put together a plan. You have to ask yourself a question. Do I believe in the plan? Am I going to actually market this week? If you're not going to market this week, and you're going to let another week go by, and you're going to let that betrayal transpire, you should just get out right now. They're hiring down at the local 7-Eleven or Plaid Pantry or some gas station with a convenience store. Go start at the beginning and get yourself to the point where you say to yourself, you know what? I don't want to work for minimum wage anymore. Fuck this. So what are you using? The word. I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. Maybe you should go back in your mind and ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I even listening to this guy rant and rave right now? Because more than likely you're in a situation where you're saying to yourself, I want change. I need change. Well, I can tell you right now, you listen to that larva. You listen to that pupa inside that cocoon. And I can tell you right now, it is struggling to get out. But you go look at a tree of caterpillars. Go look at a tree of caterpillars. And what you're going to see everywhere you look is dried up, old carcasses. where that larva or that pupa never got out and became a butterfly or a mayfly in its done stage, D-U-N-N, not D-O-N-E, but D-U-N-N. I've had the license plate for years, D-U-N-N, done, not D-O-N-E. Because when you come to the life of entomology with bug life and water, over 98% of their life is spent trying to get out of the water. Trying to get out of the water. Well, what they started to realize, and I read about this, it transpired in the 60s, is the only way that bug can get out of the water and become a mayfly or a caddis in the fly fishing world is it's got to go to the same spot. It can't randomly go to spots all around, and that's what they do. I stand over the top of them in 3 feet of water, 2 feet of water, 4 feet of water, and I look there and I watch them, and I observe them, and I see them. They'll hit here, and then they'll move over here, and they'll hit here. And what happens is they say it's harmonic. What happens is when they strike that same spot, I mean, think about this, John. If I took your chin right now, and I just lightly went like this with my fingernail, and I do have a fingernail. I haven't cut them lately. You with me, brother? You hear me?
I'm with you.
And I did it one time. You wouldn't bleed, would you? Just
Nope.
a light little touch with the nail. But if I did it 1,000,000 times, you'd be bleeding, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it. If I took my hand and I swatted you like this, that doesn't hurt at all, does it?
Nope.
I swat you 1,000,000 times like that, I'll be down to the bone, won't I?
Yes, you will.
That's the way it is when you're trying to be successful. You got to stay where the fuck you're at, and you got to give it every fucking thing you got. And believe me, I can tell each of you this, that is not 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day, 24 hours a day. You can have the thought, but I can tell you right now, I never met anybody in my damn life that can contain themselves and make themselves do it that often. So what you're going to do is you're going to do this in intervals. That doesn't mean that you say to yourself, when I go away from this and come back to it, I'm a failure. That's why I wanted to talk to Sabrina so badly today. Sabrina went away from our platform after funding alone, came back, and now she's funded alone. Success is that way. I can tell you right now, success is that way. That one day what happens, John, is I do break the skin and you do bleed. It's a guarantee. But I got to stay in the same spot. I got to stay in the same spot. You know, I can tell you right now, we are being lured in by Madison Avenue's children. And I can tell you, there's everywhere I look right now, there's people out there yelling, stop doing what you're doing. Why are you doing that? Come over here. Here. What are you doing? Come here. And Cynthia Shelton, can you hear me? Cynthia, can you hear me? She may be gone. She may be gone.
Hello?
Cynthia, I'm going to tell you how to become the #1 realtor in the entire country. You ready?
Mhm.
Get a red wagon, get some door hangers. Go to every door in your neighborhood, and then just expand. And then make sure about every 2.5 to 3 weeks, you're back in your neighborhood and you're putting a door hanger on there. First and foremost, I'm going to let you know, no one's ever put a door hanger on your door ever. In fact, I bet you dollars to donuts there's not a person in this crowd right now that's had a door hanger hung on their door for gutters, for roofing, for construction, for real estate, or anything for that matter in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. And if you have, it hadn't happened in a long time prior to that. When I was my dad's assistant in real estate from 1972 to 1978, he was the #1 realtor in the entire state of Oregon. Well, what happened is he became more of who he already was because he was a drinker, and now he was a full-fledged alcoholic drunk. And now all of that retroactive drinking was starting to show up. Money was rolling in from everywhere, and he had me quit doing the flyers because he was spending his money elsewhere, and he was telling me he didn't have the money to spend on flyers. And I remember arguing with him. I was a junior in high school, starting right at the first of the year. I was like, you can't stop marketing. If you stop marketing, business won't come in. And fucking A, what happened? The Most Perfect Storm, you talk about the movie, The Perfect Storm with George Clooney. There ain't nothing like what happened to my dad, other than to call it a perfect storm. Interest rates went to double digits. By the time we got to 1982, we were almost 20% fixed on mortgage rates. And my dad hadn't been doing any marketing in over 4 years. You mark my words. Even when interest rates are at 20%, people buy homes. Yes, I'm in agreement with you. Fewer people buy homes. But that doesn't mean that you can't be going door to door with your door hanger.
Yep. You're right.
We quit. We quit. That's what we do. There's a great company out there at one time called WeWork. And there's a great podcast and a great series out there called We Crashed. And you can see what happened to this guy. He started to become the byproduct of the fact that he thought he was all that in a bag of chips. Not unlike my old man, by the way. But he could do no wrong. And pretty soon what happened? It just fell out of the sky. Because there was no fuel involved anymore. No fuel involved anymore. You know, it's funny, Darius, I was talking to Thomas Wright last week, and I'm coaching him right now. And of all things on the face of the planet, the only possible way you could believe me, because understand, we're at a period right now where every motherfucker on the face of the planet is lying to us. So let me just go there and show it to you. All right? His name is Thomas. Can you see it? Can you see the name Thomas?
Yep.
Anyone see this right here? What does that look like to you? Anyone? What's this look like to you?
It's too blurry. It's not showing up.
Can't see it.
Is that better?
A little closer.
Beautiful bathrooms.
They're door hangers, front and back. They're door hangers. And Jeffrey took me up on it. Because you know what he does? They do bathrooms. And then guess what I did for him? So you can look his business up. It's Renovate Ease. What the fuck does that mean? Renovate Ease. That doesn't mean shit to me. So guess what I bought? Bathroom Remodelers of Utah. Who would have ever thought it was available? Bathroom Remodeling Utah. Who ever thought that would be available? So when you type in the word bathroom remodelers or bathroom remodeling companies, he's going to, in 6 months, he's going to pop right up organically. And I taught him how to buy domain names, just like I taught him how to do door hangers. And now he's got people handing out door hangers. And they're already picking up business. You know, folks, we are the problem. We are the solution to the problem, and therein lies the problem. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. But anecdotes, and that's a big word for me. Believe me, I dumb my vocabulary down on purpose. But when you look at an anecdote, am I using the right word here?
Yes. Yes.
Does anyone know what an anecdote means?
That's kind of like a story that gives you a lesson.
We live in a world where we trust others more than we trust ourselves. And they're anecdotal stories have an effect, effect on us. Now, I can't begin to tell you how many people I've met that wander through life following this guy and that lady and this guy and that lady and this guy and that lady. And then at the end of the day, they feel empty. Why not follow yourself? Why not sit down and get calm, cool, and collected and say to yourself, where do you want to go? But understand when people say to me, well, you know, I want to paint pictures, I want to be an artist, or I want to be an actor, or, you know, I want to be a writer, or I want to be successful in merchant cash advances. Understand that just because you came up with it doesn't mean that you deserve it. You got to put in the time and the effort. Now, I can't begin to tell you how many times I've seen these stories with these actors and actresses where they were going to give up, but they went to another call. They went to another tryout. And by God, if they didn't get it. And they talk about luck, and then you look back on their lives, and it's like, but they did this 681 times, 339 times, 412 times, 1,187 times. I mean, how many times do I really have to push on John's hand in one spot before he starts to bleed? Do it with yourself today. Maybe it's only 39. Maybe it's only 89. Maybe it's 109. Maybe it's 1,239. But I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to break the skin. I will guarantee you, you will break the skin. Smack yourself. And wait until you start to bleed. It may take 10,000 of them, but you're going to bleed. What is my reason for the metaphor? Or what is the metaphor? Go to the double doors of success. Go to the kingdom of success in a green meadow with the Swiss mountains behind it or the likes thereof. And look at the kingdom of success with a gigantic set of wooden doors and the wrought iron handles and the wrought iron hinges. And take a look at the people who have ran headlong into it and died there, that have shoved their right shoulder into it again and again and again and died there and never got in, that have kicked the double doors of success, pounded on them with their fists, punched them with their fists, slapped on it with their hands. If those doors were thin-skinned on the skin, it would be unimaginable how many dents those doors had in them. Think of how many people are trying to break down those doors and go through those doors of success in whatever region of their life they're in or after. Understand, folks, it only takes one key for me to open my Ford. Just one. But I can tell you right now, if I use a Toyota key, it will not work. If I use a Dodge key, my Ford will not open. If I use my wife's Telluride key, it will not open. So often what's wrong is we don't have the right key. So all I did in class was give you the keys to being successful in this industry. Like a janitor with a key ring, you have option to millions and millions and millions and billions of keys. And I gave you the keys that worked for me. But I can tell you right now, if you say to me, this doesn't work, because you only went up to the double doors of success within it and what? Blew on them? Talked to them for a minute? Like, hey, would you open for me, please? I'd like to be able to pay my rent. You think for one moment that they're going to open, for God's sakes? But they will. That's the funny part is one day you're going to take that thread and shove it through the needle because you didn't give up. And I can tell you the way it looks for me, just to let you all know, it was these intervals. No different than Lance Armstrong when he was working back in the day. We all know the name. We all know what he did. But we cannot, by any means, not admit he put the work in, because he put the work in with his team, as did his team. And they would work in intervals. They didn't work 12 hours a day at biking. They took time off. So when you go to my article and you look at it as how I became the #1 producer in this industry, and you say to yourself, why does this have over 20,000 hits on it? It's because people are saying to themselves, how did he become the #1 producer in the industry? And it says right in there that I did not do this full time, that the doctor got in the way. Hell, cancer got in my way. The doctor got in the way. Dead members of the family got in the way. My dead dogs got in the way each day. Think of everything that gets in your way. You break your foot, you break an ankle, you break a toe, you break your glasses, and you can't get your glasses fixed for 2 weeks. You're not able to drive, you can't see because you're blind without them, and you don't have the money until your Social Security check comes in or insurance kicks in. Think of all the thousands, tens of thousands, millions of things that get in your way. Now, what we have to do is we have to be able to sort through that and understand that at some point, we're not going to keep a score anymore. We're not going to write down the pros and cons. We're not going to write them down. We're just going to understand that today is going to come with a boatload of shit. It's going to be fucked. But it's going to be great too. Okay? The key here is not to be in a situation where when it's fucked, that you pay too much attention to it. People die. We're all going to die. Dogs die. Cats die. In fact, I remember being told in 1984 by Carolyn Mace that in the Catholic faith for years, generations, they would wear black for 1 full year. And then after that, they would take it off, which meant during that time, you could go ahead and be involved in the mindset of the dead. But after that, it's over. And it's too bad that more of us don't live our lives that way, where we say to ourselves, you know what? I'm going to allow myself to do this for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a week or a day. But after that, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to be part of it anymore. And I'm knowingly going to force myself every time I get there again to say to myself, don't do it. Brett, don't you allow yourself to go there again. Don't you dare. And if you find yourself there, you ease into it and say to yourself, all right, I'm going to live with this for a little bit. Obviously, I need to for some reason, but I'm going to put a stopwatch on it. I'm going to put a stopwatch on it. You know, one thing I can tell each of you this is every single solitary day, I'm working on my short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. In each aspect of my life, each area I'm going after. Some days I do an amazing job of working at them. Some days I do a shitty job of working at them. I don't grade it that way. I grade it as, did you make an effort? I don't care if I failed. Understand, Jeff Graw, you can't try to do something. You either do it or you don't, right?
Exactly.
Which means you failed if you didn't get it done. You with me, brother? You failed.
You have to fail to succeed.
Or maybe, just maybe, what we're working on is a long-term goal, and we didn't recognize that. It's going to take 5,000 days of trying. You with me?
Yep.
So now we have to, I've never heard anyone say this to me ever. I came up with this. Not one human being has ever said there's short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. In 1994, I wrote it down knowingly. And I started to differentiate between the two because when I would make my list of things to do, what I found was I had long-term goals in there, and I was upset that they didn't get done that day. Again and again for years before I started to recognize, my God, this is a long-term goal. And that's a medium-term goal. So I moved them over to the other side of the paper, knowing that what I needed to do was just work on that a little bit each day. Understanding that the sum of the parts make the whole. The sum of the parts make the whole. So when you're out there today, understand you're not going to get everything you want right now, more than likely. You're not going to get everything you need right now, more than likely. But that doesn't mean that you haven't advanced. I've always looked at it as 2 steps forward or 2 stairs up and 1 stair back. I've got a net gain of 1 stair. So no matter what, you just put a little effort in there. A little effort. And pretty soon, over a period of time, now we break through that skin. Now those double doors open. And the next thing you know, someone like Sabrina comes along and funds the $45,000 loan, her second loan in 3 years. And maybe this is the one where the lights come on and she says to herself, I've got this. This is easy. I've tried and tried and tried, and now I've got the key to the Ford, to the merchant cash advance industry. I've got the key. And I can tell you right now, inevitably, it is us that is the problem. I got to go on. I got to teach another class in 1 minute. I love all of you. Have a wonderful day. Listen to me. Right now, the greatest thing you can do in this country is be a good person. We need good people now more than we've ever needed in this country. If you're good, if you're nice, be good to someone. Say hi to someone. You need love now more than ever. Peace, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye now.
Brett.
Thank you,
Brett. Yeah, Brett. Thanks.
Take care.